What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Onyx Report's Black Masculinist news for the day. Hope all of you are well. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, donate, and join. Support the channel. Do what you can so we can continue to keep it pushing. Had a few thoughts about something that ran across my desk, and it ran across my desk in a couple of ways in the last couple of weeks. Right? And it has to do with this whole body positivity movement. Now, this has been around in various waves for decades now. This is not a new movement. Some trace the earliest waves back to the 1850s, all the way up through the 1960s, 90s, and 2000s. But for the main thrust of it, it's pretty much feminists who are arguing that they should not have to violate and mutilate themselves physically to meet some sort of standard, right? And so they have all these kind of ideas about it. Now, one of the faces of this movement, particularly as it pertains to Black women, can be found in pop culture. So many of you are familiar with Lizzo, and you're probably way more familiar with her than I am. I don't think I've ever actually listened to a whole song. I've seen a couple lyrics. More so, I've heard women who talk about Lizzo and the importance of her and whatnot. I've seen her performance, I think, on Saturday Night Live, though, or something like that. But anyway, obviously I'm not a fan. But then again, I'm not the target audience, so it is what it is. You know what I mean? But at the end of, and another thing is, I'm always seeing this woman naked everywhere I turn, which I understand is part of her push, right? To push beyond the beauty standards and be able to be free and be herself. Right? I get it. I get the overall thrust. Not really a fan of it, but not for the reasons one might think. Men have all kinds of tastes. We all have all types of fetishes. There are plenty of men that dig this. There are plenty of women that dig large men, skinny men. It is what it is. I'm not judging what people are attracted to, but there is something I want to get to as far as body positivity. There is something I want to get to, but I do want to say too, in the last couple of weeks, she wasn't the only one that crossed my desk. She wasn't the only one. You guys are probably also familiar, if you remember the 1980s television show Family Ties. I believe that's the one. Lately, I've been going around saying Growing Pains, but it's really Family Ties. This is Mallory off of Family Ties, Justine Bateman. And one of the things she's been pushing lately as well, as you can see from the pictures, that women shouldn't have to have surgeries and whatnot to meet any type of beauty standard. They many of these body positivity activists view this as a form of mutilation, right? So you have women like Jamie Lee Curtis, although, up to a few years ago, Jamie Lee Curtis was one of those women that had the genetics to where, she was still, lovely despite not necessarily getting surgery and these kind of things, which is all well and good. It is what it is. For the most part, this whole social movement about, us disregarding weight and size as it pertains to women so that they can be free is an interesting thing. But there are a couple problems that I think pop up with this. First of all, although it presents itself as altruistic, it's pretty much reserved for women, right? Because the interesting thing is, when you look at Lizzo, for example, one of the reasons she was in the news the other day is because she was pining for Chris Evans, our most recent Captain America. And I say recent because if you're a geek like myself, there have been a few. He's the most significant, though. But I've been watching live action Captain America since the 1970s when he was running around with a plastic see-through shield. So, I appreciate Chris Evans' contribution to geek culture because he finally elevated Cap. Nevertheless, she went into his DMs at a particular point on Twitter and she was trying to get at him. And he kind of jokingly laughed it off and saved face and tried to save face for her as well, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it really, what it revealed is that when you talk about body positivity as it pertains to many of these activists, they still want access to elite men. In other words, they still regard the hierarchy of beauty and social currency when it pertains to men. So they're not disregarding the entire hierarchical structure, which is what body positivity, you would think, lends itself to. No, they want to disregard the hierarchical structure only as it pertains to women. They still want top of the line elite men. They're not trying to disassemble that hierarchical structure for men. This is why she went after Chris Evans. She didn't go after the grocery dude who's bagging groceries at the local store. She's not in his Twitter DMs. She went to Chris Evans. Chris Evans represents, in terms of the hierarchical structure of social currency amongst men, elite, wealthy, white men. Handsome by conventional standards, he's at the top of the chart. When you look at the dating data that's come out in the last decade or so, right? What we see is that black men are right underneath white men in terms of desirability. And a lot of that has to do with economics, right? The degree to which white men have more wealth. But still, at the end of the day, one of the things we find is that white men are generally at the top, black men are second in that, and then at the bottom are Asian men. When it comes to women, white women, Asian women are the most desirable, and unfortunately, black women tend to be at the least. So this whole body positivity movement, looks like on the surface it wants to disassemble this hierarchical structure. But when you see Lizzo going after Chris Evans, it's interesting to note that that's not the case. So that's the first thing. They don't want to completely disassemble and smash the hierarchical structure. They just want to smash it as it pertains to women so that they can still have access to elite men without having to meet the standards, right? The second part that I have a problem with is that they require the male, they basically require male sacrifice while abandoning theirs. In other words, even Chris Evans didn't just come out the womb as Chris Evans. He had to make himself such, right? I've been watching him for years, long before Captain America. He had to earn his way to the top. It was easier for him than it would be for other groups of men because he had the genetics, he had the race, he had the skin color, all of that. But he still had to work. He didn't just wake up one day and he was famous. No, he had to grind. So they want elite men, and I've said that, but what I want to add to that component is that elite men don't become elite because they woke up one day. Men have to work to become what they are. And that's one of the differences between the male and the female hero's journey. Women biologically become women one day. They wake up, have a period, they can reproduce, they're women. Men have to make themselves into men. In other words, being a man that's desirable, you can be handsome and muscular and all of that good stuff. And yeah, you might have access to a certain amount of women, but your social value is determined by the change you're able to make into the world, the impact you're able to have. Men have to develop that out in the world. We have to compete. We have to achieve. It's beyond just doing push-ups. Right? And because of that, you have in this movement, these women pining for men who have achieved, not just that they look good. Chris Evans is a handsome dude, but he still had to achieve. She didn't go after a handsome dude who's working at the car wash. She went after a handsome dude who achieved. See, that's one of the differences. And the last point I have about this is that body positivity doesn't apply to men. It doesn't apply to men. You 350 pounds with a belly leaning over your belt. Ain't nobody attributing body positivity to you. You're not seeing women kicking down doors saying, you know what? We need to get rid of this standard across the board because that guy who's overweight, who's huffing and puffing, going up the stairs, he should be able to have access to Lauren London, all the finest women. He should have access to them simply because he's a good person. Word. You heard that? Because I haven't. How many of you have actually heard many of these activists or women in general talking about body positivity for men? And think about it. The ultimate example of body positivity for men are men with small penises. You seen a movement for that? You seen a movement where men are saying, look, I don't make a significant income. I'm less than 20,000 a year. And yeah, you might have a small penis. Is anybody arguing that he should be able to have access to elite women? Should Beyonce be leaving Jay-Z for him? Nobody's pushing that. And that's the problem I have with body positivity, right? It only pushes for women to be able to not have to compete while leaving the structure intact for men having to compete, while also shaming people into suggesting or thinking that somehow elite men need to redefine their beauty standards while women don't have to redefine their economic standards as it pertains to men. So I'll tell you this. I'll vie for body positivity the day I see people pushing for a man making $20,000 a year to be considered the standard of attractiveness for men. How about that? You let me know if that works. Y'all have a good one. Take it easy. Enjoy your day.